All right. Well, fire away when you're ready.
So, how about you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you found VP?
All right. Well, to be fair, obviously, as I've said before, I haven't actually done any photography prior to doing virtual photography. So virtual photography was pretty much my first actual experience using or doing photography. But it all started, I'd say, probably like 4 years ago now. I actually started off in Watch Dogs Legions, and there was like a little Xbox community where people shared their screenshots, and I was like, whoa, this is really cool. So I was like, you know what? Why don't I actually go ahead and, start taking some myself and then, post them? And just people started liking it, and I was like, you know what? Maybe I should expand my horizons a bit and, you know, go on to something else, like a bigger platform.
The fact that you started in that game, but you know that if I remember, Watch Dogs Legions has a really good photo mode
Yeah.
for what it is, right?
Yeah, it was actually really solid.
And do do you still play it, or you haven't gone back to it? Is it something you
I
want to?
actually picked it up again on PC because I was meaning to get back into it because I figured, it'd be cool to like revisit it since it's been basically like 3 years since I played it.
Oh, three? Since about
Yeah.
2020, 2021.
Yeah, because obviously, um, when I switched to PC, obviously I didn't have it on PC at the time. So I think like at the start of the year, I actually picked it up on sale because I'd seen that it was available on Steam. So I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll pick it up and then I'll give it a play sometime. And well, that was at the start of the year, and I still haven't played it. So
Right? That time has flew though, because I remember seeing you from even back then too. That's crazy.
yeah, it's crazy how much has happened.
Yeah, and you know something about you that I love is that
Hmm.
even with this is your experience with photography, is virtual photography, you've become a person that, like, I would say is a professional at what you do. Like literally, I feel like that
I really appreciate that.
truly, like I feel like Project Red should just pick you up and hire you, sort of feel. I'm not
Oh, that
just
would be the dream. That
th-
would be the dream.
that'd be pretty cool, right? Like the way
Yeah.
it's like concept art. I know people like to throw that around, but truly it
Mm.
is. The way you find the angles and things. I think that's what makes professional is the approach you take to VP.
Mm. I mean, to be fair, obviously, like since starting virtual photography, I've done a lot of like self-study and stuff. Like I've watched hundreds of YouTube videos on like, oh yeah, this is the kind of stuff you want to pay attention to when doing photography. And I think it's really helped me a lot because I don't always use it, but like it gives me almost a solid foundation to stand on.
Oh, so doing your self-study, that would help.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's so smart because from 2020 to now, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's been really cool. And it's been really cool learning a lot of like new stuff because it's very exciting when I think of something, I'm like, wow, I never would have thought of trying that. And then sometimes it works, sometimes I'm like, it's not something that I really am enjoying, so I'll sort of keep it in my mind but not really focus on it.
Yeah. Well, I'm just amazed, and we have several questions of like how you know, approach these things. So let's get started with
Oh
the
yeah.
questions, dude. How about we
Yeah,
get to the folks who gave you questions? That's really nice.
yeah, that'd be great.
So there's one from Jenny, and she says, "What's the method behind your sets? Do you plan ahead?"
So I actually do plan ahead, and surprisingly enough, from what I had heard from other people who take screenshots, it's actually not as common as I was expecting. Some people they're very much in the moment, which I think is obviously it makes a lot of sense, and I do that sometimes myself. But yeah, usually whenever I log on to say Cyberpunk to take some photos, I'm like, yeah. I've got like a clear idea of what I want to do because I'm usually quite imaginative when it comes to that kind of stuff. Problem with that is that usually when it comes to the actual like what I was planning and the end result, they are rarely the same. So it's sometimes for better, sometimes for worse.
But I think that's what happens, or what's incredible about the cyberpunk community is that there is a lot of planning ahead, and I think
Mm.
that's got to help the creative process rather than taking it
Oh,
within the
definitely.
moment. Like right now, I think you're doing the whole like like the secret ops or something, right? The guys are
Yeah,
taking.
yeah. Actually, I just finished that, and it was a really cool thing to do because it's not something I've done very often, to be honest. I usually have never really done like a series of photos that are all like connected in some way. So that was sort of my first actual experience doing that, and I thought I was really happy with how it turned out.
It's narrative driven, and I got to see more of those, dude.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to do some more of that style.
Do you have any like other ideas in mind?
At the moment, not really. It's one of those things where I've almost used up all the creative thought process on that one series, and now I'm like, okay, might take a few days of just sort of doing just, some small photos, and then like, I'll think of like something that'll inspire me to be like, oh, this would be cool to do a whole set focused around this kind of thing.
Bet it's like it gives you that adrenaline feeling once you have that thought in your head about these ideas, right?
Yeah,
Oh, I bet, dude.
yeah.
Especially since you know how to spice things up. Oh,
Mm.
so the other question she asked, how long do you spend with each thought?
Honestly, this is a great question because it entirely depends on the photo. Sometimes it's very simple. It's like, I've got it planned, it's pretty straightforward, and it takes maybe like 10 to 15 minutes. Other times when something more experimental or the initial thing hasn't turned out how I wanted to, I start messing around with it, and then it turns into like 2 hours, and I'm like, why am I spending 2 hours on one photo? It's not worth it. But then I finish it, and I'm like, okay, it kind of was worth it.
You're like, you know what? This is the shit. I'm glad I spent time.
Yeah, yeah. Though there are definitely times where I've done it and it's been like 2 hours, and then I finish it and I'm like, yeah, I wasted my time. This was not worth it at all. And then those ones usually never see the light of day.
Oh man. But that's actually very, I thought the same too. I'm like, I wonder how he gets, I wonder how he gets these
Mm,
thoughts and and executes it. Like, how long does it take? So that's actually very cool to know.
mm.
One of my
I
favorites
think
from
the
you is
beauty of
the
it as well. Oh, yeah.
is one of the I think you did almost a similar picture to the main capture of the front of Cyberpunk, the one with V and the car.
Oh, yeah, the Opera GX wallpaper. That one
Yes.
was really fun to do.
Oh
It was one
man.
of those things that really like solidified that I was like, yeah, I've played this game way too much because I remember seeing the photo and I was like, I know exactly where that is on the map. I will go there right now and I will spawn in a bunch of stuff and see if I can get it to look close to what the wallpaper was. But then I think what I did was I actually kind of deviated because I was like, as cool as it would be to obviously try and like completely like replicate it and copy it, I think the beauty of it is almost giving your own interpretation of it. And so that's why I was like, you know what? I'll switch it up and I'll, put Johnny there instead of V, and, I'll change the colors up a bit to make it pop a bit more.
Oh well, dude, that's my favorite one. Just because you made it your own, like you mentioned. You're like, you know what? Put my spice.
Yeah, I get what you mean. It is really nice sometimes being able to take something that you think was like, wow, that's really cool, and then do your own sort of spin on it. And I think that's something that really drives a lot of my photography is trying to take something that I've been inspired by and then do my own take on it.
Right. I think what's awesome about the cyberpunk pictures that you do is that you still make it very you make it what Cyberpunk is supposed to be still. It looks like it's
Mm.
from the game still, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's a big thing that I do try to do a lot with honestly every game that I play usually is that sometimes like literally what I'll do is like I'll play a game and then I'll be like, all right, let me look at like say some of the concept art for the game and see almost what the artists envisioned the game to look like. And then I'm like, okay, that's almost like what I'm gonna work with because I actually in like high school I actually did design as a class, so I do have a bit of a designer's mindset when it comes to that kind of stuff. So I'm like, okay, this is the kind of mood and the theme that we're working with. So I'm gonna try and keep it within that theme and try not to deviate too much.
You're making it true to the source, basically, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
That's what I like about it. It's whenever I see it, first of all, I know it's you right away. And then and the fact that it's still cyberpunk is also an incredible thing.
Mm.
And lastly, she asked favorite color.
Now this is a good one because despite my name being Emerald Envoy, it would actually be red. I'd say red is probably my favorite color. It's obviously on my profile
I
picture,
was like,
and
no, I
I
do
think it's
believe
just
it.
a really, yeah, I think it's just a really like, it's a really cool color that just pops. Like whenever you see red, it's like whoa, like you want to focus on it.
I feel like red is actually, at least for me, a difficult color to balance within my pictures. Like I want it
Yeah, no,
in the
I do
pictures.
understand that.
You feel the
I
same way
think
too?
if I had say some, yeah, I think if I had say some honorable mentions though, I actually also like purple a lot. Purple's a really nice color,
See,
in
that's
my
why you're
opinion.
awesome, man.
Yeah, purple. It's one of those things that I just like. Yeah, purple. It just goes really nice. It has like a really nice look.
Like purple, you can kind of vibe that with anything.
Exactly.
What's mine? You know, I also said like purple, but I think I just like rainbow, just for the fact that every color could be good in any setting, like in its own setting,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
So we got another question. This is by Miss
hmm
Katya, and she says, "What are some of your fave games to shoot besides CP77, and what style do you tend to stick to, if any?"
Well, obviously, as I did say before, when it comes to style, I am a huge fan of concept art and the like.
Concept.
So sometimes I do find myself really trying to emulate that concept art feel, at least with, like, say, my environmental shots and stuff. But when it comes to like favorite games to shoot outside of Cyberpunk, some pretty surprising, but I would definitely say big one that I'm really waiting for the second one to obviously come out on PC so I can shoot it. But Spider-Man Miles Morales was such a fun game to shoot. I remember I did like a set for like every single outfit in the game, and that was like something really cool. I was like, oh, this is so cool being able to like have all these different outfits to take photos of and then try and make a set that looks cool for each of them. It was a really cool
Hell
like
yeah,
little
dude!
task to do.
I actually started to
Outside
play
of
that
that,
a few
oh
months
yeah.
ago, and I agree. I agree. That
Yeah,
game is
so
fucking
I'm
gorgeous.
really waiting for the second one to come to PC because I think that'll be awesome. Being able to take photos of both Spider-Man will be really, really cool.
Especially with the snow, right?
Yeah, definitely. Outside that, I'd say another one. If we're going off of how many I've actually like how many shots I've taken of each games, I'd have to say actually Ghost Recon Breakpoint's another one because I obviously wasn't actually doing virtual photography by the time I played Ghost Recon Wildlands. It is one of the games I've picked up on PC so that I can play through it again at some point. But yeah, I think like Wildlands, I mean, not Wildlands, Breakpoint definitely had its flaws when it came to the game, but honestly, I still just really enjoyed logging on every now and I'd just explore the island and take some really cool photos. Sometimes it'd be portraits, sometimes it would be environmental shots. And obviously, since this was before I had a PC, it was nice because I was sort of limited with what I had to work with. And the photo mode for the game is quite basic, but it gets the job done. You have your time of day and your weather, and then zoom in, zoom out, that kind of stuff. And I was like, yeah, that's honestly almost all you really needed.
And you can kind of make your own flare after you take the pictures, right? So
Yeah,
it don't matter
exactly.
much. I played Breakpoint with my friends, and it is such like an amazing. It's such a big game, right? To do
Mm.
so much to it.
Yeah, I think it helps that I'm a big fan of like sci-fi and like military themed stuff. So I was like, I've been a huge Ghost Recon fan. I remember playing the first Ghost Recon Warfighter or Advanced Warfighter back in like 2000 like 6 or something. I was like, that is just like it was so cool. Well, actually, no, I think it was 2010. But yeah, it was like such a really cool experience, and I've been a huge fan of the series ever since.
I hope they make it soon. It's due time.
Mm. Another one, can't forget this one. Actually, I can't forget both of these because they have both also been a big part of my virtual photography career. Is Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order and Control. Both games I absolutely
Yeah.
enjoyed taking photos of, and I think like I've got like hundreds of photos from both of those games.
Would you go back to it with your knowledge now?
Honestly, I really do want to go back to it, especially Control, because I think that one was definitely a lot earlier in my career. Like, I think it's been like a good 2 years or so since I've actually played it. And I picked it up on PC, but when I first got back into it, I wasn't really feeling it, partially because my PC was a bit limited when it came to being able to run the game. Because unfortunately, I joked that I love to abuse my poor PC because I'll be like, all right, new game came out. I'm going to put all the graphics on the highest settings. I don't care if I'm only getting like 20 frames per second. I gotta just have the most prettiest graphics so that I can take some really nice photos. And then I'm usually like, this sucks because I'm moving the camera so slowly. But now I've upgraded to something a lot more capable. I'm really able to enjoy it a lot more.
Oh, oh man, I can't like I can't even believe like you're like, oh my gosh, now I have the tools with me and I could actually do what I actually want, right?
Yeah, it was honestly such a cool experience. And of course, the first thing I did once I got my new PC was I was like, all right, let's boot up Cyberpunk 2077 and let's see how the game runs now. And I was like, oh my goodness, it runs at higher than 15 frames per second.
You're like, finally.
Literally, I was like, that was the problem. Is like I had to like play on like medium to high graphics if I like was actually playing the game. But like as soon as I turned on like path tracing, bam, right to 15 frames, and I was like, yeah, I'm not playing the game while I'm doing this. This is purely for taking photos because I wouldn't be able to play the game like this.
I know, just fucking be taking all your time, but you must have been so patient though, dude.
Yeah, because it's actually been quite a cool journey when I think back on it because I started off on the Xbox One S, I think it was. Then I got the Xbox Series X, I think probably around the same time I started doing like actual virtual photography. Then I got my old PC, which had an RTX 3060, which was good. It got like it got the job done for a long time. And then obviously this year I managed to save up enough to get the RTX 4080 Super. And so that was like I think June or so. So it's only been like a couple months since I've actually gotten this new PC.
Oh, sick. So from Xbox to PC and there's no going back, basically, right?
Yeah, I won't lie. It's really hard to go back because there's just too much. There's too much to do on PC.
I started to mess around with PC and I'm still noobish with it, but I see why like I see why people use PC. And as
Mm,
once you have the knowledge, I can't imagine why you would go back,
yeah,
especially with what you're able to do.
yeah. No, I totally get that. It's a huge, like, it's a brand new world, pretty much.
Right. Mario asked, what are some essential shaders you would recommend, or I would say tools as well.
This is actually a good one because I was thinking about this one actually, and I was like, obviously some of the stuff I use is paywalled because obviously the people who make it, they obviously need to support themselves and they make
Of
great stuff,
course.
so it's totally understandable. But I think some really good ones that have like really carried me, well, since I learned about them, was the realistic long exposure. It's pretty simple one. It just, simulates the effects of doing a long exposure photo. But the reason why I use it is because sometimes you'll be taking a photo and like there'll be like say maybe something in the background that's like jittering and moving and it looks really like, like not it really sticks out essentially. And so, even just stuff like, the edges of a character, if you're using like a really shallow depth of field, stuff like that, it just looks really like out of place, especially for someone like me who's like a huge perfectionist when it comes to stuff. It's like I'll usually notice that kind of stuff. But when you turn on the long exposure, it almost like helps smooth out the images and the edges a bit. And I think that one's a really helpful one. I use it in literally every single one of my photos. Even if there's nothing moving, I'm still like, okay, I'm just gonna do it in case there was something in the background I missed. But another one that I would
Whatever you're
say
doing makes
is,
sense.
yeah, I think another one though, much simpler and so helpful as someone who obviously did it a lot on console is it's called freeze shot, and essentially what it does is it pretty much makes a little thumbnail of your photo as you're working on it. But what you can do is you can rotate that, so whenever you're obviously taking a portrait, and you rotate the whole screen, it's still upright for you. And that's a huge one because obviously, starting off on console, I was very used to, taking portraits, you rotate it in like 90 degrees, and I'm working on it like, oh my goodness, my neck is going to break because I'm so busy like tilting my head to try and make sure I can still see what it looks like. But so yeah, that has been a huge quality of life one for me because it's just really meant that I don't have to break my neck anymore.
And damn, these are amazing advice. Thanks,
Mm,
dude.
mm. Yeah, obviously, like there's heaps of like more like advanced stuff, but stuff like that is one of those things where I was definitely there myself, but like you hear people talk about it and it's like, what are you talking about? Like you don't need all that, and it's true, you don't actually need all of it, but like it can definitely like really fine tune stuff to like help you really focus in your shot and stuff. Stuff like canvas fogs, which allow you to essentially like basically add your own fog and stuff like that, or maybe simulate light rays and stuff like that. It's very like crazy the applications you can do with it.
Just you saying that I'm like fog? Rays?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, I know it. Yeah, that's the big reason why it's like I couldn't go back to console after unlocking like reshade and stuff. It's just there's just so much. It's I think the the best way to sum it up is it's almost like in-game Photoshop because the amount of stuff you can do with it is like you can remake an entire image. And so I know that's actually something that I do quite a lot is I actually because you can save a before and after of all your shots. It's really nice because my mum really likes looking at my screenshots, so I always like as a joke, I'll save a before and after so I can be like, oh yeah, look at this cool photo, and then I'm like, this is how it actually started, and she'll be like, oh my goodness, that literally wasn't there when you did it, and so it's really nice, and so yeah, I definitely say my mom's like my biggest fan, and obviously I'm very grateful for her support.
Dude, the fact that your mom is like supports this hobby is amazing because for a
Mm.
while I think lots of us we don't say nothing, but
Yeah.
to hear like because this is big. It's
Mm.
I want to say it's for fun, but it's also like something important to you, right?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. Especially like obviously with stuff like the gifts I got from like CD Project Red and stuff, it was like that it's stuff like that that really makes it feel like that more real. Because
Dude,
obviously
okay,
like at the end of the day, oh
whenever they
yeah.
told you about those, what you what what was your like feelings
Oh,
about it?
so I was like I lost it when I first got the email because I got an email from Wizig and Amelia, the community manager, and she was lovely, but like she was like, "Hi, we were just wondering if like we could work with you on a project," and I'm thinking like, "What, a project with me? Like little old me?" I was like, "I don't know, that's quite crazy," and then obviously I said yes, and so then they're like, "Yeah, you gotta sign this NDA," and I'm thinking, "Oh my goodness, like this is official, like this is official, official." And so yeah, I signed the NDA, and then like it was like so cool to chat with them and stuff. And then obviously after that, a couple weeks, like a week later, they send me an email saying like, "Hi, we'd like to send you like a little package as like a sign of appreciation and stuff." And I was like, wow, like that was honestly so cool. And then it got delayed for like 4 days, and I'm thinking like, come on and just send it already. Obviously, it wasn't their fault; it was FedEx. But like, yeah, it was just like it was just such an unreal experience, and I think
Dude, I
it's
would have
stuff like
felt
that that
high.
yeah, it was one of those things where it's like yeah, stuff like that is just it really just like makes my day because I'm really grateful for obviously all the support that I get with my photos and stuff.
You feel validated, like with what you do
Yeah, I
too, with
definitely
that.
think it is definitely a sense of validation. And obviously, my mum in her infinite wisdom is like, don't forget, like at the end of the day, you're still doing it for yourself, like, because yeah, at the end of the day, I enjoy taking screenshots, and so if I'm, not feeling like taking screenshots, then I won't. I'll take, maybe like a couple days break. I think the longest I've taken a break for was like a couple weeks and stuff, and then I just come back, and obviously people who want to see more will, obviously come back and see more.
And they have, because dude, seeing your photos get so much love, it deserves it.
Yeah, honestly, it is really cool.
Oh man. Let's see. We got more questions. Oh,
Oh, I'm ready.
this is this is by Gabriella and Mario. Who's your favorite Cyberpunk character?
Yeah, so funnily enough, I actually already told Gabriella because she got a little impatient and was like, "Hey, you didn't answer my question." I was like, "I'm gonna answer it in the interview," but okay. But I would say, to be honest, my favorite character in Cyberpunk 2077 would have to be Takamura. I think he is just a really badass, really cool character. I love
He's
his
a fucking
design.
badass dude.
Yeah,
I
and I think
actually,
he's
yeah,
he's
that's a good
really
one.
well written as well because like obviously like a lot of people they want to like make him see the light and be like, no, you shouldn't work for Arasaka, but like at the same time it's like when you look at it from his perspective, he owes Arasaka like everything, and so he's a really conflicted character, and I think that's what makes him so well written in my eyes is like he's a very complex character.
Right.
And
So
I remember it was very funny because obviously the first time I played through the game, I left him to die because I did not know you could save him. And so after that, I was like, wait, I could have just gone back and saved him. And then I was like, well, that will be for the second playthrough.
oh god damn. But I think he was only there for a little bit more, right?
Yeah, yeah.
After that.
But it also depended on like the ending you chose. Obviously, I always joke about I had the worst luck when it came to the endings because so like the funny story is when I first played Cyberpunk 2077, it was on the release date on my Xbox One S because my Series X had gotten delayed, so it wasn't here in time because initially I was going to play it first on the Series X so that way I had the best experience, but it got delayed. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna speed run through the entire game. I pretty much rushed through all of it and got it done in like maybe 2 to 3 days. Not the best way to experience the story, obviously, but I was still left with absolute post-ending depression because I chose the ending where you shoot yourself, and I was like, you know what, like that just ends the game quicker. And then the after credits played with all the voicemails, and I was like, oh my goodness, I feel so horrible now. I really just did that, and I think that was a really genius move by CD Projekt Red to have all of those like voicemails and stuff from the people you helped and
Just
whatnot
fuck
throughout the
you up.
game.
I
Yeah, yeah, it
know.
really messed me up because I was like, holy cow. I feel horrible, and I feel like in a way that it's sort of like it again. Obviously, shows the consequences of those actions. So then I was like, nah, I got to do it better. Second playthrough. Now I'm on the Xbox Series X. I'm like, all right, what ending am I gonna get this time? I got the ending where I sided with Arasaka because I was like, oh, why not? Surely they can cure me, right? And then, well, obviously, that happened, and I was like, wow, I still feel like an asshole. and
There's no
but at
winning
least
Tears
Takamura
Cyberpunk,
was
man.
there, and he felt like like really genuine and stuff. Like he genuinely did want to try and help V, which I think that's why he's part of the reason. Like he's one of my favorite characters, is because for all like his honor and stuff. Like if you side with him, he really does try to go to bat for you.
Yes, and you couldn't help but get attached whenever as time went on, and but you don't see him, and I'm like, no, come on.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Even
I
just
felt
like the
so
funny
bad.
banter and stuff with like the text messages was always like super funny to do and stuff. It was really fun messing with him and stuff.
He's like a boomer, right?
Yeah, literally. It was just like so funny.
Do you have do you have like a favorite Cyberpunk quest, like side quest?
Ooh, that is actually a really good question. Oh, I'm not sure actually. I know there's obviously the one that everyone raves on about is the one where you literally crucify the guy. That one was obviously
That
like
was
when I played
gnarly.
that one, I was like, whoa! I didn't realize they they were gonna do this. I think one that actually is I think it was the most memorable to me, largely just because it cracked me up so much the whole time I was playing through it, was the flaming crotch man. The guy you have to like drive to the Ripper Dog. I was like, I was like cracking up the whole way there. I was like, oh my goodness, I can't drive straight because I'm too busy laughing about the whole
He's like, it
situation.
hurts. You're
I
like,
know, and
yeah.
then yeah, and then like the cool kids are obviously crossing the street, and he's like, run him over, and I'm like, no, you don't run over kids. It's like I
I
get
didn't
what you're
know he
going through
said
is
that.
horrible, but like I'm not running over kids because of that.
He's like, calm down, man.
Yep, exactly. It was just such a funny, like humorous quest. Obviously at the expense of the poor flaming crotch man.
Do you have a favorite place to take photos?
That is a good question. I feel like it depends. It really depends on the type of photos that I'm trying to do. I'd say when it comes to like environmental shots and stuff, definitely one of my favorite places I found, like, as of recently, is definitely Dogtown. Just because, like, there's so much cool stuff to, like, see there. And it's almost like it really feels like it's still in the world of Cyberpunk, but, like, it's such a, like, stark contrast to, like, most of Night City that's like quite well developed, and you obviously have like law enforcement and the corporations, and then you go to this place where there's no corporations, and it's like there's one sole like leading faction. And I thought that was like a really cool like difference.
I love that DLC so much. I
Honestly, it was
right?
such a it was funny because I think it was the first time playing a DLC I got post-ending depression again because I finished it and I was like, holy cow, I didn't think this game would make me feel so depressed two times in a row. The first
Oh
was
my
the main
God, which one
game,
did you
and then
choose?
I won't lie, I had to choose to side with Songbird. And honestly, after finding out what happens if you don't, I was like, I'm so glad I did because I don't think I would have been able to play through Alien Isolation 2 with that underground facility that, funnily enough, I was obviously just taking photos of with that series I've been doing. Like when I went through again and I did that, and I was like, because I don't do horror at all. I suck at doing horror, which is very ironic because I've had a few like indie developers like contact me saying like, oh yeah, you want to take some photos, and I'm like, wow, an indie developer wants to take like wants me to take photos. That's so cool. What's your game? And they're like, oh, it's a horror game. And I'm like, why do you want me to do that? I don't even like horror, man. And so, I mean, I still do it, but like I turn my volume all the way to zero because I'm like, I'm not
The
listening to this
lights on
game.
too.
Yeah, exactly. I do it like in the middle of the like afternoon because I'm not doing it at like in the evening. Anything past 6, yeah, you're done, pal. I'm gonna wait until tomorrow.
Like I'm too scarred for that nonsense.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. So yeah, I'm not much of a horror person at all. So when I experienced that and I was like, wait, you're telling me I gotta hide from this huge robot that just basically insta kills you if it catches you? I was like, this is basically Alien Isolation, which is one of the few horror games I played, and is part of the reason why I'll never play horror games again.
Oh my gosh! So even if a horror game had like the best photo mode, you're like, maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember, and funnily enough, that was actually the same thing with Dead Space, the remake that came out I think last
Oh
year.
right.
Like I played through it a bit. I think I got to chapter like 4, and then I was like, yeah, this is a bit too scary for me. Like, I mean, I'm trucking along, but like, do I really want to keep going? It's funny too, considering I know quite a lot about the Dead Space franchise because one of my friends was like a huge fan of it. So like I sort of like gained knowledge from listening to him talk about the game. So like it was kind of
You're
cool being able to
experiencing.
see like the differences and stuff from obviously the original and whatnot. But yeah, it was just like I was like, yeah, it's just not my type of game. Even though the visuals were stunning, they were very very beautiful.
Oh, I know. I watched my brother play it whenever it first came out, and it was so fucking scary. I'm
Yeah.
like, maybe when I'm a little bit older, I'll play, and I
Hmm.
still haven't, just because I know the nature of the game.
Yeah.
And then it
Yeah.
got better after the remaster. So
Yeah.
that's like a no.
I remember it was really funny too because like I remember I was talking to some people about it and they're like, "Oh, think about it like this: like you've got a gun. How scary can it be?" I'm like, "Yeah, well, the problem is like it's kind of scary when your gun doesn't do anything against the monsters."
You for real. It's like pew pew pew. You're like, oh my god.
Yeah.
And then they fucking hug you and eat you at the same time.
Yep. And it's just like, oh, it's like seeing the death scenes. It's like, oh, it's so gruesome. And it's like impressive, but like, why?
I guess Resident Evil. Nah. Have you played those?
I have not played actually, I remember I have played one Resident Evil, and that was that was the demo for 7. I literally didn't finish it. That's a great way to tell you like how bad I am at horror games. I couldn't even finish the demo for Resident Evil 7. I got to the part where you're doing the recording of like, the cameraman and you have to climb down that dark ladder. I'm like, yeah, no. Alt F4. I stopped playing. I was like, yeah, I'm not really interested in this game anymore.
You're
I'll
like,
just
this is
skip
it.
it.
Nope.
Yeah, and so ironically, I actually did pick up what's it again, Resident Evil 4 remake. I still haven't played it because I'm like, yeah, it's totally not gonna scare me.
I
But then
think
I'm like,
7
but
was
it
the most
looks so
scary one.
good.
It's fucking horrifying.
Yeah,
That and I think the latest with part 8, the one, the big lady.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I know everyone was like, oh my goodness, big lady, and I'm like, that's crazy. She'll kill me. I was like,
No, he's starving
I
though.
was like, very cool. Still gonna kill me though.
Okay,
Yeah.
we have this question.
Hmm.
Okay, given your interest in VP for the past 3 years, could you share some of the most valuable lessons you've learned during this time?
All right. I think a big one, and it's actually kind of nice because I was recently talking to someone who's actually also sort of like recently started their like VP journey, if you will. I think a big one that I've definitely learned a lot, especially recently, is followers are obviously, they're great. They're the ones liking your stuff. But at the same time, if you do it for yourself and you enjoy it, naturally followers are going to obviously enjoy it as well. And I think that's a key thing is sometimes when you do it more in the service of others, you start to lose the sense of why you're actually doing it in the first place. And so it's actually something I really struggled with a lot early on is like I'd be like, okay, I got to post a photo today because I posted one yesterday and I've posted one the day before, so I got to keep posting every single day. And the problem is I you burn out. You burn out obviously if you keep doing that non-stop. And so like sometimes I'll be smarter about it. Like I'll take a bunch of photos in advance so that way I have enough to post a couple days in a row. But if I'm just genuinely not feeling like taking a photo, or at least I don't think I'm going to take one in time for like tonight or something, then I'll just leave it because I've found obviously 9 times out of 10 rushed stuff is just not going to turn out how you want it to, and then you're going to beat yourself up about that instead, and you're going to be like, oh sure, I took a photo but it's so bad and I don't even want to post it. So I think that's definitely one of like the number one lessons I'd say is like do it for your own enjoyment, and then naturally like if you're trying to gain followers and stuff, they'll obviously show up eventually.
That's a solid advice because I feel like once you start really paying attention to why aren't they liking my stuff, it'll become, I think it'll make anybody mentally ill, I think. It wouldn't be so
Yeah,
healthy at all.
yeah.
And and then would VP even be fun anymore? You're not doing it for the right
Mm.
things, like you mentioned.
Yeah, because I think the other thing as well is it also depends a lot on perspective. Because I think like sometimes I stop myself, and I think it really helps a lot. Is like say sometimes with like the recent sets that I've been taking of like this little series I've been doing, it's like I'll look at it and I'm like, wow, look at that, like it got 500 likes. I'm like, that's really cool and stuff. And then I think like, oh yeah, but like some of my previous photos were like getting like 1,000 likes and stuff. But then I think back to like the beginning. I'm like, I was ecstatic when I got like 30 likes on one photo. And so like if that me looked at the likes I was getting now, they'd be like, what? That's amazing. And so I think it's like one of those things where obviously likes are great, sure. But like, if you're happy with the photo, then that's really all that matters.
I love that perspective. Like looking
Mm.
back, how would you feel?
Yeah.
That is awesome. And I believe everything that you just said about all this advice has helped you because it reflects with your work.
Mm, definitely. I definitely agree with that. I know one thing that I always used to joke about because obviously when I started off on console, I like I said, I've pretty much used almost all the OG tools, like when I started off, I was just using your basic like iPhone edit photo stuff, and I was like, yeah, this is amazing. And then I got into Snapseed because I was like, Snapseed's free, why not? And I was like, whoa, this is even more amazing. Then I was like, you know what? Because I'm probably going to use it a lot in the future, I'll shell out the money to get Lightroom Premium. And I'm like, this is even more amazing. And then I was like, okay, if I got a PC, like I saw what people were doing on PC with reshade and stuff, and I was like, oh, I'd say to my mum, I was like, if I got a PC, mum, and I got to use reshade, I could do stuff like that too. And then, I finally got a PC, and then I started learning how to use it. In the beginning, I used like the basic stuff, and now I'll use like 12, 18 different effects on one photo. Some of them are virtually unnoticeable, others are literally change the entire photo. You
Oh,
still
sorry.
there?
I disconnected. I disconnected.
Oh,
Sorry about
oh,
that.
all good.
I
Did you hear what I
apologize.
said, or?
Could you say that the last bit, please?
Yeah, that's all good. Basically, yeah. To sum it up, basically what I was just saying is just that obviously because I've like started from essentially the not the lowest, but like I've started from like the bare essentials. When I started doing like virtual photography, I was just using like the iPhone. What's it again?
And then
Like
Snapseed, and then Lightroom,
yeah,
and then you're
and
like,
then I
Mom,
was
I'm gonna fucking do reshade. What,
yeah,
like,
exactly. And then like I got into reshade. I started learning like oh yeah, what do people use? What's really cool? And I did some of my own experimenting and stuff, and found stuff that I thought worked really well for me. And then after that it was like, yeah, it's just like revolutionary, because sometimes, I'll use like maybe like 4 or 5 like different effects and stuff, or shaders, and then sometimes I'll use like 18 and stuff, and some of them will just be simple stuff that's like you basically wouldn't even notice it, and then other stuff will be like, whoa, that literally changes the entire photo.
How long do you think you'd say that you got the hang of Reshade and the tools, like the ones that you bought as well?
I think so. It really depends, because actually, I'm sure if I looked back at some of my old photos without cringing, because I've been thinking a lot. When it comes to like my cyberpunk photos, I've been thinking of recently going back and like doing almost like a little like revisiting, take some of my old photos and then go ahead and basically like do my own like new interpretation of how they were, because it's one of those things where like at the time, it was a cool idea, but obviously I just didn't really have the knowledge and the stuff to actually make it how I wanted. And so I think that'd actually be like a really cool experience to go back to and actually do. But if I had to say how long it took me to like really get the hang of reshade, the first ever reshade photo I took was looking at this back in May of 2022, and I thought it was horrible. And then
Oh,
I think after that, it took until looking at these photos about October. So about like, 4 months for me to really be like, yeah, I'm actually getting the hang of reshade.
that's actually pretty solid, dude.
Yeah, I think it is really cool. And the nice thing as well is because of that, because I really went ahead and tried to understand like reshade, even when I started getting the new stuff, like the paid stuff, a lot of it was stuff that I was like, oh yeah, it's kind of like this thing that I've used previously. And so I was able to learn it a lot quicker.
Ah, and now it's there's no going back. And
Yeah.
are you what other things are you learning now that now you have all this knowledge?
I think the big one that I've been really like trying to, because it's one of those things where it's very on and off. Like it requires a lot of like repetition to really understand it. Is I think at the moment I'm really trying to focus a lot on colors and like how I want to use colors in my stuff, and so that's something I've been using a lot in, say, like my little series that I did earlier. Like I was really focusing on like the reds and stuff like that, and how
Right.
they were like the focus almost of the image and stuff. And then outside of that, I'd say it's sort of just a case of consistency now. Like I'm just trying to make sure that I'm consistent with what I'm doing,
Got
which
you.
I think the beauty of it is that's almost like an infinite, goal. Like you'll obviously get better at being consistent, but like almost no one is like 100% consistent. And so it's good because it almost gives you like a constant goal to keep working on.
That's what it usually is, isn't it? Like it's just
Yeah,
practice over and
definitely.
over again. I think
Yeah.
when I look back on my colors, oh my gosh, I thought they were the shit, and then when I look back, I'm like, oh my God, fuck! Like
Yeah.
that is really saturated. But I think when you cringe back at your work, that means you're doing something right now.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I think that's like the thing again, like it goes back to like consistency, because sometimes I'll look at like some of my old stuff from like, 2021 or like 2022, and I'll be like, whoa, that actually still looks really cool. Even like, with my newfound knowledge and stuff. And I'm like, wow, that like, that yeah, it still looks really good. And then obviously the next one would be like horrible. And I'm like, see, but like one of them was really cool. And so, when I can
Yes.
get to that point where all of them look really cool, then that's how like you're really starting to get the hang of it, I think.
I think, especially whenever you understand composition and then you go and understand like lighting and color, it just all
Yeah,
stacks up, right?
yeah, definitely. And I think the beauty of it as well is that like you don't always need all of it. especially like when it comes to like say color and stuff, because obviously like if you're doing black and white, obviously you're not really gonna need color
Right.
because then it's more of the focus on lighting and stuff like that. And I think, that's why, like I said, it's like if you can learn it, then you can sort of choose when to not use it.
Mario asked, "How do you come up with ideas for your shots? Since they're,
I
what you make."
think it really comes down to, and I think it's a really cool thing. Obviously, being in like such a really cool community, obviously as like the virtual photography community, it really comes down to just like inspiration. Like sometimes I'll see a photo and I'll be like, "Whoa, that looks really cool," and then I'd be like, I wonder if I could do something like that." Or sometimes it doesn't even have to be from virtual photography. Sometimes it could be like, I watch like an anime or something, and I'm like, whoa, the visuals here look amazing. I wonder if I could do something like this. And
Oh
so
yeah,
then usually
I bet.
one thing I've actually started doing recently, which I think is really cool, is I've actually been sort of keeping almost like a list of like images that I think are really cool that I can almost use as like constant inspiration.
Very nice. Like from like cinema and things like
Yeah,
that.
just yeah. I actually it was actually really cool because back when I was studying art, um, we learned about this like website where you can pretty much look at like stills from all sorts of like cinematic films and stuff like that. And I thought it was really cool because they have all sorts of different films, both modern and old. So you have like like Blade Runner or like the Matrix movies and stuff like that, and it's really cool being able to see like some just still shots from those films and then almost try and like maybe emulate it a bit, whether that's the feeling or like the colors.
I think that's a good source of inspiration, and I've
Mm,
done it a few times, but not enough to where I'm really happy with it. But the few that times I've done, I'm like, you know what? I should look back on these things. So that's a good advice to look back at cinema and still images and things like that.
yeah, I definitely would agree.
So despite being drawn to landscape and environmental photography, you also mentioned doing a lot of portraits. What excites you about these two different styles?
I think the thing that's really cool about them is that they are so like vastly different in both like the feelings they can invoke and also just what you can do with them, because obviously like with environmental photos you can really focus on like the sense of scale and stuff like that, whereas with like portraits it's a lot more like emotional and like seeing the character, how they look and stuff like that, that I think is really cool. And personally, I find a lot, especially was again as of recently, portraits are a great way for me to practice my lighting and stuff. So like, there's actually this one spot that I would say actually is also going back to that one question, one of my favorite locations to go to.
All
Granted,
right.
it's one of those things where it's like you kind of can't go here without mods, but there's a tower in what was it, in like the Corpo Plaza area, and there's like this one little like nook in the like corner of the tower that's basically pitch black. You go there at nighttime, it's pitch black, and so I will go there because then I can spawn in a character and I can, spawn in some lights, and that's it. I don't have to worry about like, oh yeah, like the sunlight is hitting them from the wrong angle, and so I'd have to move the whole character. No, I can just focus on moving the lights into the positions that I want them to be in. And so the cool thing is sometimes I'll even use them on the background to give like a really cool look. And so I'd say I use it a lot, very frequently when it comes to my portraits. Like almost like I'd say like a good 70% of my cyberpunk portraits, especially as of recently, have been from that one location. And sometimes you might not even realize just because of the fact that obviously I try to mess around with the backgrounds and stuff.
Fire, dude. And yes, I noticed that's one thing I really noticed about you is the lighting, the way you convey that um the way you convey lighting into your
Mm.
portraits and landscapes. Do you have probably a favorite though? Is it just landscapes?
I would honestly say it's yeah. I think as much as I'd say it's definitely harder for me to do, I really enjoy taking like environmentals and landscape photos like a lot more. I'd feel like portraits are still really good as well, and I feel like in a way they're almost a bit more relaxing to me because obviously sometimes they don't require as much work for me because usually when it comes to stuff like landscapes I'm very like particular about like, oh yeah, I want to make sure that the character is placed like this and that it's the right time of day, and then I might add some of my own lighting to try and like, add that flair. And so sometimes it's I almost overcomplicate the process. Sometimes I do like, go back and be like, all right, you know what? Let me just focus on doing like the bare essentials and then, let me take the photo and see how that looks. And sometimes it turns out really good.
Oh yeah.
I think it helps
Say
that
is like
obviously. Oh yeah.
yeah, yeah. What were you gonna say?
Uh, I think it really helps as well that with some games, obviously, I don't have access to like fancy lights and stuff like that, and so in a way, it almost forces me to like use what the game has. I think a good example of that was actually Starfield. I really enjoyed taking photos of Starfield, just because again, I'm a sucker for sci-fi, so like while the game had its flaws, I really enjoyed taking photos, and that was definitely not one of them, in my opinion. But so yeah, I remember like some of my favorite like landscapes that I'd done in recent time were from Starfield, and so I'm actually really looking forward to hopefully going back to the game soon because obviously the first big story DLC or expansion comes out like in a month. So
That game is like one of my favorites. Like where
yeah,
I don't even have to take photos and just play the game. It's
yeah,
because
I totally get what you
I
mean.
love the quests. You know what I mean? I think what I would
Mm,
have wanted is like maybe that's impossible because there's fucking thousands of planets,
mm.
but I would have liked more stories within the other planets. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I definitely get what you mean. Sometimes the planets did feel a little barren in terms of like, things to do there, or at least sometimes they got really repetitive. But yeah, I
And
think
now there's a
it was a
little car
really
in it.
yeah, I was really happy when I saw that they add the car, so I definitely want to like go back at some point and maybe do some photos, have the car in there as well.
Fuck yeah, dude.
I think that's
So
the problem is like I have so many games that I want to go and play that I just I it's like one of those things where unfortunately one of my biggest weaknesses, I'm a huge procrastinator, which doesn't help, especially when it comes to photos. It's like sometimes I'll be like, oh yeah, I really want to do this, and then I'll be like, but I don't really feel like it, and then like I look and I'm like, oh well, it's too late to do it now. I'll have to wait until tomorrow or something. But yeah, like
I'm such the same way. I just beat Avatar and it took me months.
yeah, I know that's actually funny enough. One of the games is like, I played it, and I was really enjoying it, and then I think I like went to do something else, and then by the time I came back, I was like, I don't really want to play Avatar at the moment. I got other games to play, and then I'm like, but I really liked taking photos of it. The environments were gorgeous, and I only experienced like probably the first 20% of the story. So I was like, there was so much that I didn't even get to see yet, and I
Now
know
Star
that's
Wars is
like
coming out, huh?
I know. I think I'm definitely gonna have to wait on that one though, because at the moment I'm just like, there's so many games coming out that I'm like, oh yeah, I really want to play them all, but like I've been playing that Black Myth Wukong game, and like that's been really cool. It's a bit difficult, but like I've actually been enjoying it, and so I'm like, I really want to take some photos of that as well. But then at the same time, I'm like, yeah, but like maybe let's beat the game first. But then I'm like, yeah, but if I beat the game, I might not want to like come back and do it. But then at the same time, I do know like there's some new game plus stuff, so I'm like, oh well, maybe I will come back.
That's my mentality with games. Like, if I finish it, will I come back, or do I do I want to play something different?
Yeah, I remember it's like I'd say it's a crowning achievement, but it's not really an achievement. It's more of like why did I spend that long? It always cracks me up because I remember telling my friend about it, and he was like, "Yeah, that's how you know you took too many screenshots." But when I first played Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, on the first planet alone, like literally the prologue planet, Bracca, I literally was there for 16 hours before I actually got past that planet. I was like, how did I spend 16 hours in a place that I'm supposed to be there for like 30 minutes. That's how I was like, yeah, I need to like I either need to play the game thoroughly and then finish it and then go back, or just, admit that I'm not going to finish the game ever because I'm going to be so busy taking screenshots.
Rocco was such a pretty fucking world, though, wasn't
I
it?
know, I'm so sad like we never really got to go back to it because it had such an atmosphere to it.
I agree. And did you like Survivor?
Yeah, I actually really enjoyed Survivor. I did have a few like technical issues, obviously because of PC and stuff. But I think obviously with my new PC, I would definitely like to go back and play it a bit now.
I think it's I think the graphics for what it is, it's really beautiful.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, especially the story. The story was really good as well.
You finished it?
Yeah, yeah, I finished the whole story.
Okay, avert your ears, people. I wanted to say like that part where he turned a little bit Sith, that was
Ah,
such a
yeah, I
fucking
know.
amazing part.
That was a really cool. Oh, and
In fact, I
Bode.
think Cynthia was with me whenever I was playing that part.
Yep.
Cynthia, where were you? I don't know if you were. Um, but yes, that part. I'm like,
Yeah.
I hope the next game's gonna be intense because
Yeah, I
it
think.
just went to show that he could be easily a Sith, huh?
Yeah, I think it'll be really cool. I remember like when I first finished what's it again? Fallen Order, and they gave you the Inquisitor outfit as a reward. I was like, "Oh, this is so cool."
I know that was fucking awesome.
Yeah, it was such a cool outfit too, considering obviously it never returned. I was so sad too that they like didn't bring it back in some way in the second game.
And the poncho, I hope it comes back.
Yeah, the poncho was really cool. I was really happy that they did add it back as like a little Easter egg.
For reals, dude.
Yeah. That and the actor just seems like a really good guy. I remember I loved it when like, he first came back and he was talking about the game, and I don't remember where it was, but like I remember he was talking about the game, and he was like being asked like, oh yeah, is there anything like he wanted to see in like the second game, and the first thing he said is like, I really hope there's more pawn shows, and that's how I know. I was like, okay,
I
I was
remember
like,
hearing
yeah,
that one.
yeah, I was like, all right, yeah, he's definitely a fan.
And I think he had to study how to do the lightsaber fights too.
Yeah, I think it's really cool the amount of work that goes into stuff like that.
Would you say like you're a Star Wars fan in general?
Yeah, I'd definitely say I'm a Star Wars fan in general. I've watched all of the movies and stuff, and I watched the Clone Wars as well as Rebels. Though I
Do
won't
you have
lie,
a favorite
recently
Star Wars?
I haven't been watching as much recently. So like I haven't seen like say the Acolyte and like those kind of stuff.
Nah,
But
I haven't either.
yeah, I'd definitely say when it comes to like favorites, the Clone Wars is definitely a top favorite. I remember watching that like even just growing up, I was watching it and I was like, man, this is so cool. And then obviously getting to actually see it end was like really cool.
Was that the one with Boba Fett coming out, or his
Um,
his dad?
no, no, that's the Wuzig and the Book of Boba Fett.
I remember they had a game of it. I don't know if they ever made one.
Yeah, I know which one you're talking about. I think that one was cancelled, unfortunately.
Boo sucks because that would have been
Yeah.
cool. I think.
I know it was a really cool concept. I mean, I guess
I know.
technically, Outlaws is probably going to try and like bridge that gap. So I'm definitely curious to see how that goes, and hopefully later on I might pick it up so that I can actually give it a try. Oh, and like sometimes I
Is-
do get a bit jealous because I'm like, I see like some people like, oh yeah, I got early access to the game, and I'm like, that's so cool, man. I'm so happy for you. Like, can you just give me that copy as well?
Points fingers together. Oh shit.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like one for me, please. I remember,
Please.
it was the worst when obviously Phantom Liberty came out for Cyberpunk, and I saw people getting early access. I was like, man, I'm gonna have to stay off Twitter for a bit now because this is just not fair. And then I remember,
You
I
can
think
do
I was
whatever
talking
you
to Egan, and he was like, oh yeah, like I think he said he asked or something. I was like, wait, you're telling me I could have just asked and they would have given me one? I was like, no, man, don't tell me that. I was like, I'm not gonna ask for it because I don't want to be seen as like, entitled or anything. So I was
But
like,
you know,
yeah,
with the content that you provide, they would say yes. I do agree,
I get that. I think it's just yeah, it's one of those things where like I don't know. I
and it's a
definitely don't
funky
know where they're
feeling,
coming with
right,
this. Yeah,
dude? But you know what? I thought so too. But one day I'm like, well, fuck it. I don't know. And let me just try it. And there's a lot of unsuccessfulness. Okay, a lot of
yeah,
rejection.
yeah.
But
I
I've gotten
get you.
like two of them.
Hey,
So
that's two
as
more
long
than
as you
me.
try, as long as you try. So the next time it comes up, you better say yes. Okay, good. Be
Yeah,
on to you
yeah,
now.
yeah. I will. I will have to. I'll make sure to send them an email. I'll be like, can you guys please give me an early copy too? I really would appreciate it. I'll take some cool screenshots. I promise.
Okay, I have a question.
hmm
So who would you say has been an inspiration to you with the VP community? Like
This
who
is
has
a great
helped you?
question because
Yes,
I have the longest list. I would be here for hours if I actually listed every single person, which you are definitely one of them as well. I love
man.
your Assassin's Creed stuff. It's so cool to see. I love the way you use your colors and stuff.
No, thank you.
I think one person I always joked and said like he's like the king of reshade, like he I could never hope to be on his level, but Dread, he is like crazy. I remember I think it was one of his Witcher shots, like they literally like did an article on it and how he did it because his stuff is like mind blowing. And then I watch him do like a breakdown video on it, and I'm like, yeah, I may know how to use Reshade. I don't know how to do that. That's insane because he'd take like hours, even days on a shot, and I'm like, I don't have the patience to do an entire day on a single shot. That's crazy. But obviously, it works for him because his stuff is just next level. And then the problem is like, sometimes people will look at it and be like, well, now anything I do, it pales in comparison to him. And I think, that's just natural. Like people are obviously going to naturally think that. But at the same time, I think of it almost more of like a challenge. I'm like, oh man, this guy, he does such amazing stuff. I want to see if I can do something that either, maybe it gives the same vibe of like, wow, I really did that. And sometimes I have succeeded, but most times I failed. But that's fine. That's just the way it is. Um, I think another person that also really inspired me a lot in Reshade as well, with some of the effects that have become quite common in my photos, is Eel Kike. He is
Okay,
like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, he does some amazing stuff with Reshade. I've always been a huge fan of like his Star Citizen stuff and the way he uses colors, it just looks so pleasing. And he is like the sole reason why I started using that cool like glitched effect on some of my portraits that usually was
Oh, I
like quite common. Yeah,
know
that
exactly
was
what you're talking
solely
about.
because I saw him do it and I was like, that's so amazing. What is that called? And he was like, it's called compute gravity. And I'm like, I'm going to use that.
Oh
And then
man, and you
obviously
know
it's
what?
like,
They've been my favorite portraits from you. I'm so
yeah.
glad you did.
And it's tough because obviously, it's one of those things where like you don't want to blatantly copy the person. So like obviously I tried to do it in my own way. But yeah, it's definitely one of those things where I'm like, yeah, I just wouldn't be the same if I hadn't learned about all that stuff from him. So I'm very grateful to him. Because he's definitely been a huge inspiration when it comes to reshade and stuff for me as well. I think some honorable mentions as well. Just in terms of like, I always enjoy seeing their shots, especially in games like say Cyberpunk and The Witcher, would be Jim 2.0, I think it was.
Oh yeah, incredible
But
landscapes.
yeah, yeah, his Cyberpunk stuff was always like super cool to look at, and his Witcher stuff is I think what he's obviously most well known for because he was just amazing. Like his landscape shots in that are like next level. Like honestly, a lot of them look like they could just be like official screenshots, from the game, and I'm like,
Truly,
ah,
dude.
it's so cool. Um, I think let's see, what's some other ones? I know another one that again similar to Dread. Like when I first saw him, I was like, wow, so nothing I do is going to be as good as that. And I think the reason why it's even more impressive, is because um as far as I remember, he doesn't really use reshade as much. A lot of his stuff is purely in game, but his name's Birdo. To be fair, also I
That's
think the one thing
insane.
that I do have to like remind myself is like unlike little old me, he like actually works at EA as like a taking screenshots for them and stuff. So I'm like, okay, it's literally his job. I'd assume that he'd be very good at it, but like still, sometimes I remember seeing some of his Cyberpunk stuff, and sometimes he'd break down how he did it, and it's like just the fact that like most of it was in game is just a testament to how good he is at taking photos and stuff.
Dude, you know what? It's good to have friends like that because you could even get inspired and they could even help you improve or
Definitely.
to, right? Like improve your shots
Yeah.
and help you with your vision of what you want.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, funnily enough, actually, that free shot shader I was talking about that helps you not break your neck. Jim was the one who told me about that, and I was like, "What? How have I not known about this whole time? It's so good." I only learned about it like probably like 2 years ago, and I'm like, I could have saved myself so much neck pain if I had learned.
And you know what? You probably helped all the folks here be like, oh, guy.
I'm very glad to hear that.
How about this, man? We're gonna
Hmm.
open the chat to any of the folks here and see if they want
Yeah,
to ask you any questions.
that
But
sounds great.
for now, what you think of the interview so far?
I think it has been a really cool experience. Definitely, like my first time doing something like this. I'm usually quite introverted, so usually I'm like talking to people is so draining. But I think it's really cool because obviously it's people who share the same hobby as me, and like they all are here for the same reason, which is the love of virtual photography, and I think that's
And
why
you,
it's really
yeah,
cool.
and I think so many people need to hear like I wanted to give a platform to like you because you've been here for so long as much as I have. Like I
Mm,
remember seeing you with me and you've been so supportive too. And I want to thank
yeah.
you.
Oh, I'm really glad to hear that because yeah, honestly, you've been there, like I said, since the beginning, pretty much. I remember
I know
the
we
first
rode
time
it.
you followed me, and I was like, "Whoa, this is so cool." She has
That's
so
how I
many
felt whenever you
followers, and
followed
she
me.
followed me, and I'm like, "Oh, it's so cool."
And just to see you grow and get these things, especially when I saw you get that one from Cyberpunk, the gift, I'm like,
Yeah,
fuck yeah,
yeah,
because he
it
deserves
was
it.
it was a really cool. It was such a like validating experience for me.
Oh man. Okay, I haven't received any requests, so how about we close it right here, man?
That is all good with me. It has been an absolute pleasure.